What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. Destin made, or I hope that's how you say his last name, he made some statements in this podcast, and a lot of it has been taken out of context. So what I wanted to do was from the perspective of a gamer and a commentator and a wannabe game developer, I wanted to go ahead and give my thoughts on exactly what I think may be missing in terms of how they're interpreting the Xbox ecosystem. I also would love to let Destin speak and, just let this video just play out so we can hear his thoughts before I actually start, making and drawing conclusions, because I feel like that's a nuance that's missing. And a lot of the console warriors on Twitter who have been exposed to be frauds are asking forgiveness after having basically taken this material to use for console ammunition, when in reality, they're misinforming people. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at all of this. We're going to look at from the perspective of the gamer, from the perspective of the wannabe game dev. If you look at my task manager, you see something. If you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know. And we're going to see if we can actually come up with a baseline of what might be missing in this particular conversation. So Destin is about to answer his question. So let's listen carefully.
Thoughts on Microsoft's financials here, specifically as it pertains to Xbox?
Yeah, so content and services grew 61%, 58 points of help from Activision there. So overall, it's 3 points of growth. Hardware is just in the toilet. Basically, I don't think it really makes business sense for Microsoft to be investing in this next generation of hardware. Am I glad that they're doing?
With all due respect, Destin, okay, you said you don't know if it makes business sense. So with all due respect, let me tell you why I think it makes business sense. Not like I'm some business expert. However, I think just looking at, the way these corporations work in financials and competition can probably give us a clue as to how these things go. In my last video, I used the Costco example. Costco is basically a major beef retailer in America. In fact, they're probably one of the biggest beef retailers in the country. As of 2021, according to Wikipedia, Costco is the third largest retailer in the world and is the largest retailer of choice and prime beef, organic foods, rotisserie chicken, and wine as of 2016. This particular metric for Costco means that they're dominating in this area. However, their competitors have not seeded the choice and prime beef market. In fact, if anything, they're offering and trying to stay competitive within this market and doing their best to serve their customers where their customers are. Xbox is doing the exact same thing, Destin. Just because PlayStation is dominating and selling consoles 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, 5-1 does not mean Microsoft is going to just abandon the console market. No, they're going to serve their own console audience and their community where their community is and provide services for them. No one has said to Sam's Club and Walmart, why don't you just stop selling beef overall? Close the back of your shop. It's a waste of time. Because Costco owns you. No one has ever said that. So why does it make business sense? It makes business sense because they have patrons and they have customers. And those patrons are about 27 million on the Xbox platform. Even though they are 60 million, twice as much on the PlayStation 5 platform, it is still a consumer base and a customer base worth serving. Economies of scale. That's reason number one. Reason number two is if we run the math and we actually do the math of what a console sale versus what software sale will net you, you will see that as of Xbox, they lose about $200 per console sold. So that puts them, every console that's sold on the Xbox, they lose $200. If they sell 10 consoles, or let's just say they sell 100 consoles, they are negative $20,000. And they have to actually wait to possibly recoup this money by trying to sell subscription services and games and microtransactions from other games to possibly recoup this money on 100 consoles. However, having possibly broken even on Starfield, if they sold 1,000 copies or 100 copies of Starfield on sale price, which is what it usually goes for, around $45, for 100 of them, they make $4,500. Mathematically, $4,500 is greater than negative $20,000. If I gave you $4,500 check, Destin, Paris, Ryan, if I gave you a $4,500 US dollar check and a negative $20,000 US check, which one would you take? Any day, every day? The $4,500 check. Because payroll is basically calculating every 15, 30 days. That doesn't mean that the negative $20,000 check cannot mature to be much more down the road. However, there is a place for that as well, which is why the consoles still continue to exist, which I'm sure Destin's going to highlight in this particular conversation. Let's keep listening.
Yeah, I suppose I'm glad, but I don't get why that investment is being made when you
I just explained it.
Can't even sell your current console and you can't give people a reason to buy your current generation of console.
They gave 30 million people, 27, depending on how you want to look at it, a reason to buy their console. One reason was they had a good entry level. The second reason, they said it was the most powerful console, and it is the most powerful hardware console. It appealed to some people to buy it that way. When the EA college football game came out, it finally actually paid off for the Series S. The Series S had been the brunt of all problems. In fact, now it became a meme that, something happened over in the tree fell in the forest. It's the Series S's fault. However, when EA brought out the college football, having not brought out that game for 25 years, a lot of people who wanted to maybe come in and play the game on this new generation. They said, man, I'm not going to spend $4.99. I don't want to spend $3.99, but I want to get this EA college football game. Many of them targeted the Series S. Why? It was an entry-level console that was more friendly to the wallet. It paid off. That was actually Microsoft's reason at first. You see, many of us were sitting here and, we're fortunate to be able to get the best consoles, or at least, we're able to talk about these things and we can pursue them, but not everybody has access to those means. So a Series S console has a market for it. People who do not want to spend that much money, or who don't have that much money to spend for a new generation console, can make their way into the new generation with a console of that level. Very simple. Also, the services and all of the stuff that Microsoft has been doing for all these years, that needs to also come into this conversation somewhere, somehow, because again, the Xbox platform is bigger than just the console itself. And if we actually follow that console math that we were doing just now, and we say, okay, well, having already maybe, spent all this money and we've already broken even from Game Pass, how can we now make profit on top of Game Pass? Well, let's get Game Pass wherever we can. Why don't we get Game Pass on the Amazon Fire Stick and make $16.99 for people who sign up for Ultimate? And maybe we pay Amazon 10% or whatever percentage. So instead, it's going to be maybe somewhere around $14. Right? So every time somebody gets that Fire Stick and they sign up for Game Pass Ultimate, Xbox makes about $14 trickling in. Over millions of subscribers continuing to do this, this nets them more income at the end of the day. So continuing to fixate on the hardware market for Xbox is a misnomer. When you also want to think about it, when you also want to add to the equation, you also have to realize that as they're selling their games on Steam, they also have their own Xbox platform where they sell their games as well without any of the hassles of Steam. You see, this is one of those places where any game sold here, whether it's their game or not their game, nets them money overall. Because their own games, they're getting full profit. Third-party games being purchased here, they're getting a cut. And it's not necessarily, in some sense, going to Steam at the end of the day. I've seen people say that Xbox cost all this money to run. What kind of nonsense is that? Like, have they not been hosting games for years? So how much more money is it going to cost for somebody to subscribe and have access to a specific library of games? And even still, Game Pass is still profitable. So once again, I don't know what's going on in this conversation, to be very honest. I'm a little confused, but let me listen to all what Destin has to say here.
Like, clearly, it's not happening for them, right? However, the one thing a few people forgot to or missed was from the Q&A session was when somebody asked, how should investors think about the longer term growth potential in this area? You made significant investments in the Activision deal, but how should investors be thinking about the growth potential of the gaming, or what are the puts and takes to help make considerations here? Thank you. And Satya Nadella and Amy Hood said the following. Satya said, yeah, for us, our investment in gaming fundamentally was to have, I'd say, the right portfolio of both what we love about gaming and always have loved about gaming, which is Xbox and the content for the console, and expand from there so that we have content for everywhere people play games, starting with the PC. It's
the same thing Sam's Club is doing, even though Costco is basically the biggest. I brought the Costco conversation up because it makes, in a retail economics of scale business 101 sense, this is what competitive markets look like. So yeah, they're starting with the PC first. Listen, so I think Destin is basically saying PC first, but Destin, he said, letting players play anywhere they want. He's talking about the external platforms. Xbox is the core platform. So when we move out of Xbox, PC is first. I can't believe this is almost taken into context. I don't know why Destin is emphasizing this as this is they're prioritizing the PC over the Xbox. They're not doing that. In fact, Game Pass used to have the better offering on the Xbox console when it first launched. I don't know why. Oh my gosh. Okay.
With the PC. When I think about the Activision portfolio, it comes with great assets for us to cover both the PC and the console, and then of course assets to cover mobile sockets. We feel that we have both content and the ability to access the traditional high-scale platforms where people play games, which is the console, PC, and mobile. I'm sorry this is long-winded, but it's important because he talks about where they're going with their business. But we're also excited about the new sockets, right? I mean, the fact that even in this last quarter, we expanded xCloud to Amazon TV helps us reach, I'm paraphrasing there, new gamers or the same gamer everywhere they want to play. And that also
nets us about $14 or less, but still money anytime somebody subscribes. Okay, I'm just being facetious, but you get what I mean.
Ultimately will show up in that services, software plus services and transaction revenue for us, which is really our long-term KPI. And that's what we're building towards. And that was this strategy behind Activision as an asset. So it seems to be that
I mentioned this, that the strategy that Xbox had pursued was always to acquire big names to put into their Game Pass. The first set of news that we heard about Warner Brothers wanting to, looking for somebody to purchase them for about $4 billion, this was actually floating around 2020. I think this was already Xbox's strategy. They were just looking for something big to buy to slam into Game Pass and call it Gucci right there. But it seems like, as it's just been said just now by Satya Nadella in The Answer, I think Destin is going to leap over this and then draw a conclusion that's based on hardware sales are dead. I don't know, man. I wish this is always something that they highlight and say, well, is this sensible in context of everything? And the answer to that is usually yes.
Strategy was really to build this portfolio, and Amy Hood also elaborated on this topic also. I think we're really encouraged by some of the progress and how we're making progress with Game Pass, as well as with some of the new announcements. But they're not really talking about the console. They're not really talking about hardware. They're talking about cloud, they're talking about their library, and they're talking about accessibility wherever people want to play. So I think this is a big shift. I'm sort of surprised that they're developing new hardware, given how poorly the current Xbox has sold for them.
I'm also surprised how other retailers are selling beef, seeing how poorly their beef sales are doing compared to Costco. I mean, we could basically just throw it into any context, like, I'm actually quite surprised, how Barnes & Nobles are still selling books, seeing how Amazon is eating them alive without any physical. And we could go on and on and on and on and on with every other retailer continuing to play in a market that there is domination going forward. PlayStation themselves, in their own leaks, said, based on the Activision acquisition, based on Xbox's capability to deliver content on PC and through subscription services, our pillars are outdated and behind the competition. It's a very strong strategy, strong enough that Xbox or PlayStation, themselves, according to those leaks that the journalists reported on that came from Insomniac, even acknowledge that it is something that is troubling enough for them to take a look at and has put them behind. Because for the most part, they led with hardware sales. But hardware sales were not working for Xbox, so they were able to go ahead and find something else. Simple. And that's what is actually right now showing up, because hardware sales are always going to falter. I mean, even Nintendo is facing hardware sales, challenges. PlayStation is facing hardware sales challenges, not as much as Xbox, However, in terms of being able to find other income streams, this is not the case at all for Xbox. Let's finish what Destin says here and I'll end this video.
Granted, software and services is going up, and that seems to be where their focus is versus new hardware. So
why would their focus be on new hardware? And again, I want to ask this question. I want to beat this horse so dead. Why would they focus on hardware when you sell 100 of those things, you net negative $20,000 when you could net positive $4,500 in the short term? And on the long term, you can build a subscription library that continues to net you change from every corner. And that's just a fire stick, ladies and gentlemen. They already have the TVs where I'm sure they basically only have to maybe just provide the app for Samsung there. I don't know what financial agreements are probably there with the other TV manufacturers or other hardware manufacturers. It could be that it's just maybe free on there. Please. Come on now.
I hope that sort of illustrates what I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking that they're focusing less on hardware than ever before.
If I could,
it makes sense that they should do that. It makes sense that they should do that. I would love to actually, analyze everything that's said here, but I think, again, there's stuff that's missing in this context. And if we look at other contexts within retail and we look at the way, business works, you can come in with a different proposition that's not the traditional proposition of another competitor. You can do something differently. Yeah. You can be a pizza, you could be a pizzeria, and you could be, in competition with another pizzeria, and you can have a unique selling point or a unique niche. I love pizza. I mean, the pizza joints in my town, I go there and I know their business proposition. I know their market strategies to the best of my knowledge anyways. I mean, they didn't tell me. But I see the differences that actually make each and every one of them unique, even though at the core of their business, they're selling pizzas or they're, providing variations in pizzas of some kinds. And even with that, they're dominant players in the market. However, the other players are still there and able to still continue to keep a customer base. How are they doing it? By selling pizza and then also offering things on the side that makes the customers look and say, this is still viable and this is still worthwhile. They're games journalists. We really need to have a heart-to-heart as to how a lot of the commentary that is actually put out here is very, very cognizant and very considerate of business as a whole and all of the above. This is a very interesting topic and is one that I think is a good learning experience for us to be able to see how everybody thinks about this stuff. And at the end of the day, be able to provide what I think is a lot of nuance to everything that's going on. Because if you take the perspective of this at face value, you're not going to get the full picture. And, again, there's only so much that can be said in a 1 hour podcast. I'm not blaming them in any sense. I'm just saying that there's much that could be gleaned from everything that is missing at the end of the day. Anyways, that's my video. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you guys' time and audience. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.